Okay. In general, for these absolute value inequalities, how we solve these are going to be based on this symbol. If we're less than, then we're like the example we just had, where we're going to be, these are all numbers that are closer to 0 than C. Or this is an and, or maybe a better way to describe it would be a between inequality. Okay? And in general, we're going to take what's inside, and it's going to be between two things. What was x between in this case up here? When we made this to less than, what were the two numbers x was between? 3 and the opposite of 3. So in general, what's inside the absolute value would be between whatever was in front and the opposite of the number shown. So between either C or negative C. Okay. And recall those graphs. Just as a reminder, those in-between graphs are things that would be closer to 0 or in between. Versus if it's bigger than or equal to, now we've got this situation. Now we're going to look for numbers that are farther away from 0 than now we're going to have numbers that are farther away from 0 than whatever this value is, which we said those are OR inequalities. Okay. So to represent this, we'll take whatever's inside, and this will be bigger than C, or whatever's inside will be less than the opposite of C. Okay. Notice that I used a less than or equal sign. I flipped the sign because we said that it represents kind of going, one's going to go to the left, or is a less than, one's going to the right, which is the positive. Okay. These two things should match. So we already discussed that these graphs should match up. Also, I'll give you a word of warning that if you just do the reverse of this, this is not a good idea. Don't do this. Okay, some of you will be tempted to just to take whatever this is and just flip all the signs around. This is not a good idea. This does not really make a ton of sense. Don't ever write your inequalities like this. Okay, don't do that. Go with this method up here is your good one. Okay. So let's see if we can apply it. So I want to ask you to solve absolute value of x is less than or equal to 8. What x's have a distance from 0 that's less than or equal to 8? Angel? Okay. Negative 8. Are there any other values that, what's the other like bounding value? So the ones we're kind of interested in here, x's or numbers that have a distance from 0 that are less than or equal to 8. Well, negative 8, sure. Well, is there any other ones? 8. Okay. So we could have those. It's an or equal to. And what other ones? Like how should we draw our graph? How do we represent the numbers that have a distance from 0 that are less than or equal to 8? Are they going to be inside of here or outside of here?
Inside.
So let's connect them. Okay. Notice I'm kind of doing this one backwards, and I'm finding the graph first, and then write my inequality. So like how would I write a compound inequality that fits this? Is x outside or is it between the two? Okay, so let's write a between inequality that describes these numbers. Put x, we put less than signs, and then write what it's between. What is x in between? -8, +8. We got those numbers because we just looked at this guy. We said one positive, one's negative, and x is between there. Okay. How about this thing? Okay, the distance from 0 of r is bigger than 2/3. Okay. So distance from 0 from r is bigger than 2/3. If we follow our little procedure from up here, bigger than is an or inequality. Bigger than is or. So I'm going to get two things. I'm going to take whatever's inside is bigger than this number, or whatever's inside is less than the opposite of that number. So what should my second inequality be?
R is less than 2/3. Or negative 2/3.
Less than the opposite. Bigger than the positive, less than the negative. Do I need to solve this anymore? Is there anything else to do here? No. Okay, so then how do I graph this? Let's find where 2/3 is. There's 2/3. Okay, I'll put a circle. It's going to be open or closed.
I think both of them are going to be
Open. And the numbers that are bigger than 2/3 are all here to the right. Okay, so then I also need to graph my second one. I'm going to look at negative 2/3. It's open. And then I want less than negative 2/3. Where the numbers are less than that? Right or left? Left. Okay. So for our little last example on the front side, we have something, an absolute value is bigger than 8. Before we go any, since the absolute value is by itself, we need to make a decision. Is this going to be a between thing, or is this going to be an or thing? Is this a between or an or, and how do you know? It's an or, and how do you know? Because of what symbol? The inequality is a greater than. The inequality is a greater than, so we'll do an or. Okay. Well, so then what does that tell us to do then? Now it's an or. So, okay, great. We have two inequalities. What are my two inequalities I'm going to write? What's inside is bigger than this positive number, or what's inside is going to be what? Less than the opposite of that. All right, let's solve these. Subtract 3. X bigger than 5. Or subtract 3. X less than negative 11. How do I graph this? Oh. Not everyone at once. How do I graph x is bigger than 5? There's 5. Open circle. Going to the right. Okay, now what?
circle with negative 8 underneath it, pointing towards the small numbers.
There we go. Okay. It's our graph. I'm going to do 2 more with you. We'll do the last one on your own, and then we'll get your homework out. Okay? All right. Absolute value of 2s minus 1 is less than 11. Okay, the absolute value is by itself, so decision time. Is this a between or an or? It's a between. It's an and or a between because it's a less than symbol. Less than is a between. This distance is less than 11. It's all the numbers inside of 11 or negative 11. So if it's a between, I'm going to write what's inside. 2s minus 1 is going to be between what 2 numbers? Positive 11 and negative 11. Positive and negative, whatever I wrote right there. Okay, how do I solve this compound inequality then? If I add 1 in the middle, I'll add 1 to all sides. 2s less than 12, but bigger than negative 10. Now what? S is between 6 and negative 5. So how do I graph or represent S is between negative 5 and 6? How about we put it negative 5 and 6 on our number line? Open circles because they're not or equal to. And then where are the S's that are between negative 5 and 6? Inside them. Okay. If there's numbers going on, something going on outside the absolute value, just like we saw the last 2 days, let's get the absolute value by itself first, and then we'll finish solving from there. So undo this adding first. So you have 21. Undo this division. Get 5m minus 6 is less than or equal to 7. Okay, is this going to be a between or an or? Between. So we'll put what's inside is between what 2 numbers? What is 5m minus 6 between? 7 and negative 7. Okay. So we can solve this. We'll actually get, where our final answer will end up being decimals in this case. Just looking ahead, so don't freak out. 5m less than or equal to 13. Negative 1. Divide by 5. So negative 1/5. Does anyone know what negative 1/5 as a decimal is? Negative 0.2. And 13 over 5 is what, 2.6, I believe. We're equal to. So then if m is somewhere between negative 0.2 and 2.6, filled in circles. And then how do I finish? How do I draw the line? Am I going outside or between? Hence a between inequality. So
Is that 26 or 2.6?
it should be a 2.6. 13 over 5 is 2.6. I want you to try this one on your own. You may want to note that warning I put on the front side of the notes. when you're solving this. Solve this one on your own. We'll save the story problem for tomorrow. We'll go over in class tomorrow. And I want to come around and check how you're doing on this. And I'll throw up the homework in just a second.